Are the SP 500 and the Nasdaq 100. We're going to talk about exactly where we are and where we are going. Now, specifically when we look at these indexes, the weakest of them has been the Nasdaq. When we look at Dow and look at ES, those have remained a little bit on the stronger end of things, but it's important to also know Jim Cramer did just come out and say he expects the Dow to continue running. This has me concerned. So as we look at where we are, where we're going here, I have to anticipate and point some key notes out specifically when it comes to ES before we even go further in the video. As we were looking here, ES has had a lot of chop, if you will, on the day. Really, just a lot of sideways movement, nothing really happening here. But if we go over to something like the SPY, just to show you the, a lot of people are trading the SPY over looking at ES and futures. But when we're looking here at SPY, I have to just point out what's happening here. If we go to about the 15-minute chart so I can show you, I was really highlighting this earlier on Twitter. If you're not following me, the link is down below. But we came down basically yesterday. We tested this, bounced. We talked about the volume that stepped in there. At open today, sellers stepped back in, right? We had a little bit of a bounce, and then sellers stepped back in around 9:30, 10 o'clock. Push us underneath, and then we got rejected there and kind of just sat there for the rest of the day. But we are still above 395.5 roughly. We're still in that range. Right now in the after hours, we are dropping a little bit. I do want to talk about a trade that I got in recently, and I actually went short on a position. I'm going to mention that here in a little bit. But before we go any further, I have to ask you to consider doing two things: liking and subscribing. Every single day I'm going over the charts, what I'm looking at in the market, and stocks that I'm looking to buy. Again, every single day, so you are prepared. Make sure you consider liking and subscribing. Let's get to it. So again, I do think you're having resistance on SPY at this level. And the case that I used for Twitter and used for Discord specifically was what happened back here. And if we look what happened, you really held this area overall before the 395. It's a major level here. And really what took us out is we had to gap down, and then we kind of chopped for a few days and then remounted it and obviously pushed back up. Now, if we look at where we're at now, I believe you have more weakness than you did before, and it looks like you're flagging on something like the hourly. So with the ES and with the SPY, you have to anticipate downside, but it's worth mentioning we have Powell speaking tomorrow. So I do believe there's going to be a little bit of fear in the market, maybe a little bit of selling going into that. It's also important, Thursday, we are going to have PCE data. This is going to be probably one of the most important data pulls that we're going to get. So Thursday PC, I think, is going to be really nice. However, this is what I want you to just keep an eye out for going into tomorrow. I want you to watch for a dip into Powell speaking, because again, I am short on a position. I'll go in that here in a sec, but I expect downside, and then I expect a good reaction from PCE data personally. So best case scenario, we get a drop on the market from Powell speaking, and then we bounce back up into Thursday. It's kind of my anticipation, what I'm looking for. So that's what I'm looking at here. Now, when you're looking at sectors to go short on, and again, I'm not short on SPY, I'm trying to tell you that now, because SPY's really been choppy. It's not been the greatest thing ever. And when we look here, it's not definitely the weakest. But when we look at Nasdaq, we see the weakness that's taking place here. Tech, semiconductors, whatever you're thinking of right now. And if I'm looking at the Nasdaq, it continues to show weakness. Just zooming out a little bit more, you can see this massive level. This is not a demand zone or supply. I just want to highlight this pretty big level that we have. If we go to about the 2-hour chart, you can see how this is held. You held here, back to the downside, rejected here. You can see you based here, rejected again here, came back making lower highs now. So on the Nasdaq, I am bearish. It looks bad. Now you have this area around 1144, 1143 that has held. It's a really weird area, but we can remember back here where we were mounting above this area. We flipped, got rejected, and pushed all the way back down. So it's worth mentioning that is a decent level to be watching. There's no key level there. It's just really weird how we continue to bounce from that area. So what I'm looking for is a break below the around 1144 range. If that happens, I can see this sliding down pretty gross. Now, as far as stocks in the Nasdaq that I'm watching and that I'm most excited about, I'm going to go over and do things a little bit differently here on the day. I want to talk about some stocks in the sector that I hate and think that have downside. Now, when we look at NVIDIA, I want to highlight the 4-hour chart, which we've been talking about so much. You were making these higher lows essentially since October 12th, and now you are trying to break. Not ideal. If you start breaking down and breaking below roughly 155 tomorrow, 155.5 even, could be a little bit more aggressive. You start seeing selling. I anticipate a 150 touch. That starts to break. I would assume you get a push down even deeper if we continue on bearish through PCE. If that does happen, down to 139, 140. I think NVIDIA does have downside. QCOM. Also loving this. Mentioned it a lot in Discord today. I did not grab a position. I went a little bit more conservative with mine, but I still think there's downside here. You had a double top, if you will, as you can see right here. It's not an exact double top, so bear with me. I don't want to hear the people hating and the complaints, right? But you can see, and excuse me, I'm a little bit sick as well, but you broke that low right here. So this is validating a double top. And I actually love this 4-hour candle to end the day. I do think QCOM will have a push down. You have a daily gap all the way down to 13.5, 13.7. So I do think there's a lot of downside here on QCOM. Probably my top stock to watch going into tomorrow. Now, this is going to be the play that I bought. Meta. I've been talking about it. It's been all over my Twitter. I want everyone to know this. Now, it is a descending triangle, but descending triangles, just so you know, are typically continuation patterns. However, I still love how this is forming out here. Okay, continuous lower highs, breaking down lower lows coming in also. You did not make a lower low today, but a lot of selling pressure as you get above 109, 109.5. I got into January 20th, just want to highlight in Discord, I got into January 20th, 105s. Now, the downside potential here is great because if we drop down to 105, 104, 103 is my first level. And then after that, we have a daily level all the way down to 97, 98. I'll go into exactly why here in a sec, but this is the beauty of where we're at now. And I definitely think if we start getting any selling, it's going to really pay out. Now, the key part here is the risk to reward here. Our stops are very close. They'd roughly be around the 111, 110.5 area to break out of this, descending little triangle we have going, making a higher high, anything like that would get us out of this trade. Now, so the risk to reward here is beautiful. It's about 5 to 6, right? And just in comparison, you're risking about 15% to make 50 here and around 80 to 100 down here if we do drop to 98, 97. So I love the potential here. I think Meta looks just treacherous. There's a lot of puts coming in, as you can see over here. A lot of puts coming in very fast. So I love it. I think Meta has downside. Personal thing that I'm loving so much. Again, I just try to be transparent with you guys. I post the winners, post the losers. If I lose here, I'll post it. Yesterday was Q puts. Those worked out, and now we're looking at Meta puts. So that's what I'm loving here. Now, when we go look at futures, and I just want to be really clear about where we're at. When we look at futures, it's a little bit less attractive. Now, if you played this was really the move, if you will, because you were making those higher lows here, and then you broke, and once you broke, that was really it. And you can see almost picture perfect how this is kind of going here, right? That 39.90 range, you came back up, retested, and pushed back down. It's nasty. Now, if we also bring up that 200 MA, which I continue to tell everyone about, and this was one of the big signs of things that we had to be watching. That 200 MA on the daily time frame is right there, and that's kind of where we got rejected. So that's why I was telling people, I was like, look, if you can break SPY 403, then you play to 410 for the instantaneous rejection at 410, then you would get out of it, right? But that was your play for maybe breaking above that key level and shooting up SPY. You're going to see it's the same basic chart also. So that's what I'm talking about here with ES. So if you would have broke that, I think you would have put like 4,100, then probably tanked back down. But you can see you're getting rejected from this point now. And then also on the 4-hour time frame, you can see you're grinding below that 9 EMA, which has honestly just been, stellar to look at here. Every single time you flagged into this and dropped, flagged and dropped. That's why I'm so adamant on using the 9 EMA. You can use higher time frames, 5 minutes, probably the best to day trade on. But when you're looking at 4 hours, you can definitely just see the overall trend that's formed out here perfectly. Now, when we look at Nasdaq, it's not as beautiful, if you will. You can see that, yeah, we've had a decent little push. We dropped back down, lost that 11.8 level, and you're really losing the overall range you're in. For instance, if I show you Qs, I mentioned this yesterday. You've been basically sitting in this tight little range. If we go back to the 1-hour chart, we can see for basically the past week or so, you've been sitting in this range. But what happened today? Why does this look so bad in my opinion? You broke through your demand straight down with one volatility about from the 9:30 to 10 o'clock range central. You flagged, rejected multiple times, and it looks like you want to keep pushing down. You can also see that downtrend that's now forming here also. Again, this is not me just making stuff up. It's just looking at the action that we're getting now. So you have to side with more downside to come. But again, I want to just reiterate the importance of what's happening over the next 2 days. Powell will dictate what happens tomorrow. It's going to be the biggest factor into tomorrow. So be totally prepared to listen to whatever that man has to say. And then number 2, PCE can easily reverse short term, at least, what Powell says. So if Powell comes out and he's just hawkish and he's betting on downside and he thinks the market needs to keep getting 75-point rates, which I doubt he's going to say that. I think he's going to lean more towards the 50 points. However, but continued rate hikes because he doesn't think inflation's, done with, and he doesn't believe a pivot's coming. I want to highlight that I would see a potential bounce on good data from PCE going into Thursday. And I can't say that enough. I just want to make sure everyone gets that through their heads, and I'm very clear on that aspect of it. So that's what I'm looking at there. Now, I do want to go over a few things before I let you out of here. One, the VIX. The VIX represents exactly what's happening here on SPY. SPY, if you really look here again, today, you had a bit of a drop here, but ultimately on the hourly, we just did nothing. We opened up around 395. We ended the day at 395. Not too much to say there. VIX, just complete sideways action. I could see us dropping into tomorrow and VIX dropping also. Now, the most ideal thing, even if VIX starts to drop, I could still see the potential for downside on the broad market. Why? Because again, we've been targeting this key area at $18 to $19. And I posted this on Twitter yesterday, but look over the past year. Every time we came into this range, it's been a monster rally back to the upside on VIX, which has gone in the pivot of what's happening on the market. Cause for concern. Just saying, it's worth looking at this area. You did get a little bit of a wick in this area, about the 20.4, 20.5. But again, keep this on your radar. Worth looking at, worth watching. Looking at the yields, you are seeing the 10-year pop back up on the day in this range still. And if we go over to what's happening when we talk about the inversion, you're still very much in line with what's happening here. 98.6, you're still very close to a full inversion, the 10 over the 30. This is still worrisome. This is still bad for the overall economy. Remember that Credit Suisse report that we went over. Again, if you have not watched this video right here, the Black Swan video, I recommend doing so because it's going to give you a very good perspective of the long-term market over the next 2 to 3 months. And I know that's not extremely long-term, but I like people to have a roadmap of what to expect because then you won't misinterpret things that are said or things that happen on the market. And that's going to really, preserve your capital in the long run. And that's the overall strategy here is to reduce risk at all cost and preserve our capital, right? Because in a bear market, you're not looking to get rich. Yeah, you can position yourself for long-term things, but your goal is to just survive, make money, get to that next bull market. And that's where you're going to make all your money because you're trading during the bottom of this overall trend. So just know that going into this, I really recommend watching that video. It's going to give you a good outlook of everything overall. Now, on the day, I do want to highlight what happened here. Abysmal volume. It's so bad. 51 million. We came in lower than yesterday, which was 67, and also lower than most days of last week, which was a holiday weekend. This was absolutely pathetic if you really think about it. If you really look at the half day that we had on Friday, this probably would have pulled in more volume if it was a full trading day. I just want to say that right now. So looking at the volume, it's still grotesque. It's still gross. You're not getting follow through on the market. I want to show Bookmap for a second also. If we look at Bookmap, I just want to highlight what happened on the day. Okay, just really, really quick. You basically saw that open up. You had sideways movement, that volatile drop, and then just kind of sideways movement. And it really looks like a flag if you really get down to it. Just a bear flag kind of forming out here. Now, I'm not going to say you're going to dump tomorrow or anything like that, but I just want to highlight that. It's also worth mentioning the blue line, which represents icebergs, the hidden order book, that dark pool coming in, right? Very minimal today. Very, very minimal, which kind of aligns with what's happening with volume. Now, CVD, again, chopping all over the place, up, down, up, down. Just goes to show you there's a lot of indecision, which aligns with the overall volume on the market. So I want people to understand that right now, I don't think it's set in stone that we have downside or necessarily upside, right? Now, I'm playing the short-term move, expecting that downside push possibly to 390, 391-ish, give or take. So I think we have short-term downside, but I want to express right now that we might get a little bit of an impulse tomorrow. But again, you're going to hear me. This video is probably the most repetitive I've been in a long time. But again, you can easily pivot back with that PCE data and then the expectations into that next Fed meeting, which is going to be very big, maybe the most influential over the next 2 to 3 months, just so you know. So this is things we need to be paying attention to and watching specifically, because this could set the tone to really start bouncing on the market, possibly with the next few days. I want that to be known. Now, if we go back, I do want to go over flow algo. If we look here also, this is the liquidity levels, and we can see that 395 has the most liquidity on the SPY over the past basically 2 years. I want to highlight that. The most liquidity. So that's why you're consistently being like a magnet right there. Back to 395, you break below, you break above. It's like you can't get away from it, right? The next level is at 389, 390 range. I want to highlight that. So that's why I'm targeting that area. And it's much bigger than that 400 range. So I definitely think we want to get a test down there. Okay, that's why I'm aligning this also when it comes to SPY. Now, going into Meta and some other stuff that I'm liking, I just want to be really clear. Meta is one of those charts that I really like. I like this almost as much as I like the Tesla setup that I just had. Now we look at Meta. We can see that 114 area. We covered this a few weeks ago when we were looking at shorts here. And that 114 area is the level. It's that guy. It's the big boy. Now, after that, you have a few 111, which are below, 109, which is smaller, but then 97, where that daily gap fills, that's where you have the most volume relative to that 114 area. So I want to highlight that, show everyone just food for thought, very close to our target. That's why I think this is definitely in the realm of possibilities to get some volatile movement towards the downside. Again, my stops are set around 12, 15% roughly on my position. So I'm not just YOLOing this or holding till, the moon or whatever. I definitely have a strategy and have a plan here and, am controlling my overall risk, but I'm trying to attack the market with something that's pretty weak in my opinion. So that's what I'm looking at here. If you have questions, please comment down below. I'll see you tomorrow.